I'm not sure where you got cut off, but so this devotee was asking, just saying, I have these horrible thoughts sometimes, very, thoughts which are diametrically opposed to bhakti. And it frightened her, and she was concerned, so she asked how to deal with it. And the speaker said, you should ignore it. And she said, it's difficult to ignore sometimes. And he said, if you give energy to it, then those thoughts will pull you down. If you ignore them, then they're just there. So, I think the first thing to understand is, I think this is really important, is that that's true for everyone. Everyone has those thoughts. And if we become discouraged by it, it's just a trick of Maya. So I don't know if I told this story before, but I read an interesting thing by a Buddhist, a Western Buddhist, and his Buddhist teacher said, you have to chant this mantra over and over again. I mean, sometimes Buddhists will chant all day, or 6 hours or something. Anyway, he was chanting a long time. And he couldn't understand why. Why do I have to keep chanting this over and over again? Because of course, in material life, we don't sit and say one thing over and over again. So, yes, I don't know. Anyway, so then he had a realization. He said, my mind has been working one way over and over and over again. And because my mind has been working one way over and over and over again, now I understand why I have to chant over and over again. The same thing, sometimes devotees say, well, I go to class, I hear Bhagavatam, but then I fall back into Maya. So it doesn't seem like it's working. It's actually working. But Prabhupada gives the example of a dog's tail. I don't know if you've heard this example. He said, you can't straighten a dog's tail. He said, try to straighten it, but it will go back to its curved position. So he used that example to show how conditioned we are. We try to, straighten ourselves out, but it goes back to this curved position. Right? You have that experience? And so that can be discouraging, but that's just normal. Just understand that that's normal. And what we need to understand is the process. So, now, Sundarupa is having a problem. Who else is having a problem? Just Sundarupa? Or everybody? Sundarupa says the screen is freezing. Anyway, in the India factor is playing tricks with your computer. So now, the other day, a devotee sent me an email. And she said, Prabhupada was asked a question. I'm not sure the exact question, it was something like, how long does it take to become Krishna conscious or to become advanced or something like that? And Prabhupada thought for a moment, and then he said, 40 years. So, okay, Prabhu's, 40 years if you're not Krishna conscious, then you can complain, but you can't complain yet. Because what's happening, it's like you get sick, you get really sick, because you've been overeating and been a couch potato all your life. And you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you are a walking time bomb. Any moment you could explode. And you say, okay, doctor. Say, doctor, you say I could die at any moment, What should I do? Can you give me a pill? Can we just have an operation? Can we just get cured in like 2 days? And the doctor said, no, this has been going on for 25 years. It's going to take time to change your diet. You have to change the way you think. You have to stop taking all those pills and medicines, the 3 pills at 6 a.m. and the 4 pills at 7, and the ones to wake you up, the ones to put you to sleep, the ones to calm you down, the ones to give you energy, the ones to thin your blood, the ones to keep you alert, the ones to do what else? Lower your cholesterol. And the Prozac, of course, to keep you sane. You have to stop taking all those drugs because those drugs are killing you, although the doctor thought they were helping you. So, as we've spoken before, I think we spoke about this last week, you try to imagine how long you've been in the material world. And for all intents and purposes, the number is forever, if you know how long that number is. So we understand we've been here forever. And now we're beginning Krishna consciousness, and we're wondering, why does my mind sometimes have crazy thoughts? Well, stop wondering. You should know why, because it's been having crazy thoughts forever. Now you've become Krishna conscious. Give yourself a slap on the back, clap your hands, applaud yourself. You're trying to become a devotee. That's glorious. I was just thinking a crazy thought this morning. Well, not so crazy. I was thinking about George Harrison and how he wanted to be Krishna conscious so much, which was, in a sense, unusual for a person of that status, because even if you want to be Krishna conscious, by the time you reach that status, you probably wouldn't want to be. But the fact is, he wanted to be. And I don't know if you all know the story, but Prabhupada stayed at the estate of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And so all the Beatles got either to see, I don't know if they all saw Prabhupada, maybe they did, but they all got to learn about Krishna consciousness from the devotees, because the devotees were there with Prabhupada. Oh yeah, so, and Nimzu knows. So anyway, so the devotees were there with the Beatles, with the Beatles, and only one of the Beatles became a devotee. Isn't that interesting when you think about it? They had Prabhupada's association, they had the association of devotees. And of course, so many people saw Prabhupada or heard Prabhupada. And they didn't become devotees. And you've all become devotees. So give yourself a big hand. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a kiss. It's glorious. It is glorious. Now, focus on the glorious fact that you are trying to undo conditioning that has been going on forever. It's glorious. Just the fact that you're trying. Because, in a sense, it's an impossible task. Because so few people even try. So in that sense, it's an impossible task, or it's a rare task, because so few people even try it. So it's just the fact you're trying. It's just the fact that you chant Hare Krishna, you hear Shastra, you do some service. It's glorious. So we should focus on the glorious side. Now the other side, the conditioned side, we should learn to accept the reality that as a diseased patient is getting better, sometimes they're going to have bad days. They're not going to feel so good because for so many years they mistreated their body. But guaranteed you will get better. I'll guarantee it. I'll give you it in writing. If you want it, I'll send it to you. I'll have it notarized. The process works, but we have to do the process. It will work eventually, gradually. So, what do we do in the meantime? What we do in the meantime, well, the answer that was given in this class, the answer I always give, what we do in the meantime is don't worry about it. Don't give in to it. Now, another thought I had this morning, and I don't know if I can explain this well. I mean, I can explain it well. I don't know if you understand it because it's my realization, and I didn't have this realization as a younger devotee. But as we know, there are the demands to speak, the demands to hear, to see, to touch, to taste, to smell, and the demands of anger and so forth. And these things are described in the Nectar of Instruction. And it said that these things, these pushings, called vegam, these pushings we have to learn to control. Now, for neophyte devotee, when the pushing's there, what happened? The pushing, I mean the pushing of the senses. Oh, I just want this. I have to have this. Oh, I'll die for this. You know, like when you come to India, ladies, and you go into a sari shop, beautiful silk saris, your blood pressure will rise. We may have to hold you up. You might faint when you see them, or you see the gold jewelry. Or you see all the beautiful things you could buy. Your senses will become aggravated and agitated, and they will start pushing you. And your breathing will increase. Your blood pressure will rise. Your face will blush. And very soon, your money will be coming out of your purse, and you'll be buying things. And you'll walk out, and you'll walk out of the store, and you'll say, I just couldn't control myself. And then you'll get your credit card statement, and it says, you spent $5,000 at the sari shop, and you'll sit there and cry, why did I do that? Oh, I'm in debt. So, what we should understand, maybe you won't spend 5,000, maybe 500. What we should understand from this, and I think this is really important, is that when the senses are pushing, there's a mechanism within us which has been well cultivated since time immemorial. Is that when the senses push, when the mind dictates, then the mechanism says, do it. You have no choice. You have to do it. And so this is what I wanted to discuss. As I was thinking about this morning, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that often we're caught in this, we don't have this paradigm of, well, the senses are pushing, but so what? Just the mantra, so what? So what? So they're pushing. That doesn't mean I have to do it. But the conditioned state, particularly in the present age, where morals are low, where the ability to keep vows are low, where people are not as principled as they used to be, then when there's a pushing, then we equate that pushing with a reality that it has to be done. It's just, well, the pushing is there, I have no control, I can't help myself. So this mantra, I can't help myself, is false. It's 100% false. And it's very important that we realize or we understand the falsity of that mantra, that I can't help myself. No, you can. So just understanding that the pushing is one thing, but your reaction is a completely different department. They're not connected. It pushes in one department, but you're in another department or another area of the house. So that room is cold, and if you walk in that room, it's cold, but you can walk out of that room into a room where the temperature is nice and toasty and warm, which it is not in Ohio, and it's not in New Jersey, and it's probably not in Houston, where 3 of you are, and it's certainly not in Vancouver, where Leslie is. But you can walk out of that cold room that has the windows open into a nice toasty room. You can do that. You don't have to say, no, but I'm stuck in the room. So that's how we think. We actually think like that, and that's the problem. No, the sense is pushing, but I have to do it. Now, how can we relate to this? And so we can relate to this because there are certain things in our life we would never do, because they're below our threshold of what we consider proper or improper. So an action which we consider improper, we don't do. It's firmly ingrained within our psyche, right? So there's certain things, even if your mind or your senses were drawn to do them, you just wouldn't do them because it's below your threshold of what you would consider acceptable behavior. True? Everyone agree? So, what we have to do in Krishna consciousness is raise the threshold of what's acceptable. So you bring yourself to a point where perhaps what is acceptable now, which shastrically is not acceptable, but you've made it acceptable, you have to raise your acceptability level to the level of Shastra. So when you say, well, my senses are so strong, I just, this thing hit me, my body is shaking and reeling and rolling now, and I can't control myself. No, just raise the threshold. So that, you may feel like killing somebody, but you're not going to kill them. You may feel like doing so many crazy things, but you're not going to do them because you don't do those things, even if you feel them. And we've certainly felt some very strong ill feelings towards people at times in our life, but we don't do them because we're not people who will do that. But there are other feelings. I just had to buy this. I just had to eat this. I just had to see this. I just had to touch this. Just had to taste this. There are other times when we do that. And there are things which are not Krishna conscious. Because we think, because the body is buzzing, we have to do it. So, as I've said many times, and I'll say it again because it's worth repeating, your desires for sense gratification are not that important in the scheme of the universe. If you get that, if you understand that your desires, your little buzzing of your senses, are not that important to fulfill. What's important to fulfill is spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. And spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, making other people Krishna conscious, is diametrically opposed to satisfying one's urges. Right? It's really on the opposite end of the totem pole. And if you understand that you exist as a devotee, and we discussed this before, but I think these things are important to discuss again. You exist as a devotee for the welfare of the world, just as Krishna exists for the welfare of everyone, as servants, as devotees of Krishna. We exist for the welfare of everyone. And when you exist for the welfare of everyone, then the pushings and buzzings of your body become more, you understand the insignificance of them. I'm just an insignificant living entity and my senses are buzzing. So let them buzz, who cares? My mind, my thoughts, my heart should dwell on how to help other people and how to reciprocate in a relationship with Krishna by being purely engaged in his service. That's it. That's right there. That's it. That's all you have to do. And if we just do that, that is the reconditioning process. And if we don't do that, then how will we recondition ourselves? You understand the idea? Avikam, you understand the idea? The reconditioning process is to serve. That's the reconditioning process. And the reconditioning process is when, and to serve others and to serve Krishna with pure motivation. And so then, when I have desire and my senses are going wacky, I look at that and I say, this is not my raison d'être. It's not the reason I don't exist to consume. Just like now, in the present world, once upon a time in the history of the world, you and I were called citizens. But we are no longer referred to as citizens, even though we are citizens of our countries. We are now referred to as consumers. Let's look at the consumer report. How are the consumers doing? So we've been relegated or degraded to a position, a more noble position. We were nobly known as citizens. Now we've been degraded. We've lost our status as citizens, and now we've been degraded to the status of consumers. Why? Because that's what people do. Their existence is to consume through the five senses. So now we're devotees. Our existence is not to consume, our existence is to serve. Our existence is to love Krishna, to serve Guru, serve Vaishnavas. You know, a very interesting phenomena, how Prabhupada came to the West. And he preached about the importance of Guru. The importance of Guru is serve the Guru, satisfy the Guru. Why? Why did he preach so strongly, and why was that so effective? Because that was the way out of this mess. Because these people, conditioned souls, stopped thinking about the buzzings and the pushings of the senses, and they thought, how can I satisfy Prabhupada? How can I do something to satisfy Prabhupada? Perfect. That's it. Just, I'm not thinking about myself anymore. It's perfect, perfect, perfect. Why does Krishna say in the Gita, 12th chapter, even if you can't do bhakti, even if you can't do karma, just try to do something for somebody else? Why does he say that? Because all we think about is ourself. And our desires are so important. The whole world, whole universe is like, from our perspective, it's just like flowing around me. Am I happy today? What am I going to do? It's crazy. It's insane. It's a form of insanity. So, it's true, as Nimzu says, Nimzu, if you can say that 10 times fast, you get free sandesh, I'll mail it to you. It's true. It's a blessing to serve. That's the real blessing. Think, well, I'm blessed, I just won the lottery. No. The blessing is to be able to serve other Vaishnavas. Serve Guru, serve Krishna. What a blessing. And we're sitting around thinking about, how can I serve myself? How can I make myself happy? I'll give you an insider secret. You can't. I tried it. It doesn't work. You don't have to bother. I've already taken that road. I've got a lot of experience trying to be happy. It doesn't work. Take my word for it. Actually, don't take my word for it. Take Krishna's word for it. He's already told us. You don't have to waste your time trying. Been there, done that. Doesn't work. What works is making Krishna happy, making Guru happy, making Vaishnavas happy. Okay. So, the whole point in me saying all this is I'm trying to bring you to this point that when you go into that shop to buy that beautiful set of earrings, or guys, you go in there to buy the 64-inch flat screen TV, or the motorcycle with an engine 4 times larger than you'll ever need, or your car, or your dress, or your shoes, or what. I have to have those. You start panting and breathing. Or guys, of course, guys. The biggest problem with guys is the girls. When they see the girls, that's when their heart starts beating. That's the solution for low blood pressure. Put a guy in a room with a beautiful girl, but not good if he has high blood pressure. He could have a heart attack. Actually, I'll tell you a story. My wife's going to make a face when I tell this story. One old man was breaking one of the regulative principles, and it wasn't eating meat, it wasn't intoxication, it wasn't gambling, it was the other regulative principle. He was breaking it with a very young, beautiful girl, and he got so excited he died in the act. It's a true story. So, gentlemen, when you see a beautiful girl, you become disturbed. It doesn't matter. It's the conditioning. It doesn't matter. It's not that important, and just don't give it energy. So that's the. I think probably is beyond. We're taking the stage beyond whether you want it or need it, to the point where it's not even. We want to get to the point where it's not even a contemplation. It's just we are so much in the mood of service that no matter how it hits us, how the desire hits us, it's just like, so what? Who cares? Big deal. It's not a problem. The problem is when we think it's a problem, And the only reason ultimately we'll think it's a problem is because we're not strongly engaged in Krishna consciousness in a positive way. Because when you give in to negativity, it draws you in, it pulls you in. So that's the lesson. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada gives the example of a hunter. Hunter has a trap, he catches the animal, and then if he lets it out of the trap, thinking the animal will stay there with him and become his dinner, he's a fool. The animal will run away. And in the same way, Prabhupada said, do not trust your mind. Do not think, oh, I have it under control. So what to do? So Prabhupada said, neglect it. Just, okay, it has these thoughts. So what? Should I now meditate on the fact that I've had this thought and just meditate on it all day? No, we neglect it. Okay, it's a thought. It's only a thought. It's not going to do anything to me if I don't give into it. Right? It's just a thought. It's just... Do you know Sundarupa, Jai Jagannath, Christina, Sushma, Bhajanjani, and Nimzu, Avikam, Pallavi, and Leslie, do you know that when you have one of these horrible thoughts, you could actually think something nice, like of Krishna's lotus feet? Do you know you could do that? Do you know you can? When the whole world seems to be caving in on you and you feel like there's only one way to act and it's the wrong way, do you realize that you can think of Krishna at that moment? When that moment hits us, we don't realize it, do we? We think, no, there's nothing else I can do. I can only do one thing, and that's the thing where my senses are pulling me. It's not true. It's not true, and don't ever believe it. As you advance in Krishna consciousness, what's going to happen? I'll give you a preview of coming attractions. Your desire to please Krishna, your desire to exist in this world only for the sake of pleasing Krishna, nothing else, only for the sake of service, only for the sake of helping others become Krishna conscious, becomes so strong that your other desires become dissipated in the wake of that desire. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? I'll say that again in English. As you become more advanced in Krishna consciousness, your desire to exist only for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, your desire to exist only to help others become Krishna conscious, becomes so strong that your other desires become dissolved or fade away, or they can't take seed because there's no soil within your heart for them to grow. So, what does this mean? It means we need to cultivate that desire more and more. So when these nasty other desires come, that's okay. They're just going to come because that's the way conditioning works. They're just there. You're going to think of them. All right. Don't meditate on it, but cultivate the desire of how to be of service, because that's our position. We exist only as a minute particle of serving energy. And when we're in that position, thinking, how can I serve others? Then everything is wonderful. Sometimes we become angry, jealous, envious, resentful. That's not serving mode. The mode is called getting back. That's called one-upmanship. It's not the position of a devotee. The position of a devotee is always to be of service, to be helped, in a organization, ISKCON or any organization, one of the biggest problems is people getting along. And we have controversial issues we disagree on. It's so hard often for people to get along. But as we become more Krishna conscious, more in the mood of service, it'll be easier to deal with people we don't like, because we're not going to be out to put them down or criticize them or whatever. We're just going to be out to be in some way an assistant to helping spread Krishna consciousness. That's what it's all about. So now Sushma is saying, okay, something very interesting. This makes us feel special. Ha 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 ha. That is so funny. When I become Krishna conscious, I'll become... no, okay, all right, no, Sushma, it's a good point. I'm just laughing because if you were actually in the mood of servant, that you wouldn't feel so special. But it's only because we want to feel special. Hey, I want to walk in the temple. I'm going to wear a little ID card that says, I'm the best servant, and I just want you to know that. No, that's our material conditioning. So that's part of the problem. If you feel that way, it's still part of the problem. If you're totally in the mood of servant, you won't feel that way. But if you get in the mood of servant, and you feel that way, that's the problem. That means it's still there. You know, pride is not part of the servant mentality. Pride is the foundation of material life. So yes, it's true, we can engage in devotional service with the desire to be recognized. But that's devotional service. According to Kapila Deva in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, that's devotional service in the mode of ignorance. So you can perform bhakti, but your consciousness can be in ignorance. So you perform bhakti to either become recognized, or maybe that's not your reason, but then you get recognized and you like it, you enjoy it, you're having a good time. Hey, maybe I'll do that again because, you know, I got a lot of recognition. Let's repeat this. Let's do it over. I'll get some more recognition. We have to understand, where is that coming from? It's coming from the same place. Because pride is just a more subtle form of sense gratification, and so sometimes we don't notice it. Just like, let's say you overeat or you oversleep, and then immediately you say, every time anyone overeats, there's the last thing they say after their last bite. What do they say? Oh, I ate too much. Right? Isn't it true? You know it, right? You know it. It's not like it takes you 3 days to figure out you ate too much. You know it. You have that sense. That's your conscience. You know that. Or you slept too much. You know it. Or you got angry at someone and you yell at them, and then 10 minutes later you feel horrible. You say, I shouldn't have done that. You have your conscience. You know that. But pride is more subtle. Because pride is not always obvious that we're doing something motivated by pride. Is it? It's not obvious. Okay, now here's my take on pride, just so you get clear on it. According to me, you have 5 senses with which you can enjoy. But pride is a much higher form of enjoyment. Be honored is a much higher form of enjoyment than the enjoyment you get from the gross senses. In pride, it hits right at the heart or the essence of material conditioning. So when we're honored, it's like we came to this material world to imitate Krishna. Okay, so you could get sense gratification with your senses, but you really can't imitate Krishna so well doing that, because he's better at it than you. But pride, that's the best way to imitate Krishna. Get honored, because everyone in the world honors God. Everyone in the world knows him. So fame, notoriety, honor, prestige, you can compete better with Krishna that way. And that's why pride is so satisfying. And that's why it comes up often even in pure devotional service, where we'll be motivated sometimes to get some recognition. So if that desire is infiltrating in our bhakti, then we have to control that, because it's foundational to material conditioning. Okay, so you're having a conversation, and Sundarupa says, how do we handle when devotees glorify us or recognize us for good service that we do? How should we position ourselves, and how to respond to the person glorifying us? Okay, this is how to respond. If you do something wonderful, or good, or excellent, or super excellent, or powerful, or intelligent, or you exhibit some talent in devotional service that's appreciated by others, you should think, isn't it wonderful? Isn't my Guru wonderful? Isn't the Sangha of devotees wonderful? Isn't Prabhupada wonderful? Isn't Krishna wonderful? That they can use such a lowly, wretched person to do something of any value. That's how you should think. Because that's the truth. Isn't it? Isn't that the truth? In other words, it's the glory of the Sangha Vaishnavas, it's the glory of your Guru, it's the glory of Prabhupada, it's the glory of Krishna that you are able to do something wonderful. And it's particularly glorious because we feel ourselves so low, so fallen, so wretched, and I was able to do something wonderful. That is simply Krishna's mercy. You know, people glorified Prabhupada and he never accepted it. And what he said was, he said, I have not done anything wonderful. Why did he say that? Because he knew Krishna did it. But then he said, okay, if you say I've done something wonderful, in other words, he was acknowledging that externally, objectively, yeah, there were 108 temples that he opened. There were thousands of disciples. Things were happening. So he said, okay, if you want to say I've done something wonderful, he was looking for the word, not acknowledging. 6. Anyway, he's accepting it. He said, if you say I've done anything wonderful, that is all the blessing of my Guru. So in other words, he's not taking credit for it. And the credit that he took, he said, it's a blessing of my Guru that I follow his instruction, that the power is within the instruction. So what did I do? I followed the instructions. So you Sundarupa, you can take credit that you got the mercy of the Vaishnavas by following the instructions. And so something wonderful was to happen. We should always feel that way. We should never take it personally, because if we feel that way, Krishna will use us more and more to do more wonderful things in his service. But if we become proud, then Krishna's going to think, well, I'm not going to let you do wonderful service because you become proud and then you'll fall on your face. So maybe next week I'll make a fool of you. So you'll try to do the same thing and you'll botch it up. Everyone said, oh, Sundarupa, this halava you made, I've never had halava like this. It must taste like it came from the higher planets. And you're all proud of yourself. Yeah, I make the best halava. Nobody can make halava like me. I mean, these devotees, they don't understand halava like I understand it. They just don't have the sukriti, the piety, and I understand halava. And so then when Krishna sees you like that, then next week when you cook halava, he's going to create an emergency in the middle of the halava cooking. You're going to have to run out and take a phone call and this and that. And you're going to come back and your halava is going to be burned. And everyone's going to say, you jerk, you burnt the halava. That's an offense to the deities. You'll be lucky if you don't go to hell for 100 lifetimes. So Krishna will do that to you, to humble you. So you should understand that. That's his mercy. So if you stay humble, then he'll allow you to do more and more service and empower you more and more. And so, but understand, pride is that's the ultimate sense gratification. The ultimate, better than money, better than power, even better than sex, pride. I could do an advertisement for pride. So imagine we're selling a package of pride. And you have people giving testimonials. Hey, this is way better than money. This package of pride, oh, I feel so good. Someone else comes on. Hey, I was one of the most powerful people in the world. This pride stuff is much better. Somebody comes on, some attractive guy, says, yeah, I play the field, I have so many girlfriends, but this pride is much better. That's it. Pride is everything. So if we can learn to control pride, then everything is good. Sounded like someone was coming in our room here. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So the answer to your question is, you think it is Krishna's mercy that he can use such a wretched, fallen person to do anything in his service. That's how you think, and you'll be good. Okay. Not get affected by adversities. Yeah, in a higher, if you see Sushma, if you see Krishna's hand in adversities, and you see what am I to learn, and then ultimately see that actually there is no adversity. Just like, I'll give you an example, Sushma. let's say you're in a situation now, and maybe the situation, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but for the sake of discussion, maybe the situation you're in now, you see it as difficult for being Krishna conscious. Now, I can guarantee you 108% that somebody else in your situation, some devotee somewhere in your situation, would not see it as difficult. So to say something is difficult is very subjective. Well, let's not say very, just let's say it's subjective. Because what's difficult for you now, in 10 years, when you're more Krishna conscious, that same situation may be not difficult for you at all. So it's a subjective experience. So when we talk about adversities, really it's a very personal, subjective thing. We're saying, this is difficult for me. And then we should understand, well, why is it difficult? Is it because of me? Is it actually the situation? Now, Prabhupada has said something very important, so everyone pay attention. He said, a neophyte devotee, the problem, I don't know if he said problem, but he said, a neophyte devotee, they always look at a situation and they think that their Krishna consciousness is dependent or being affected by this situation. And he said, the more advanced devotee understands you can be Krishna conscious anywhere. And so every situation is a challenge. I'm not saying it's not more difficult to be Krishna conscious in one situation than another. But what Prabhupada's saying is they don't blame the situation. They don't get into a situation and go, oh no, I can't be Krishna conscious in this situation. They just look at the situation and they say, okay, there are challenges in this situation, so I'm going to have to adapt a different strategy. Kind of like if you're fighting a war. Okay, one strategy for one battle, another strategy for another battle. So every battle, everywhere you go, you face a battle with Maya, you take different strategies. So just rather than, and just using the word this is adverse or this is difficult, it has a psychological effect. Because if you think it's difficult, or I'm in an adverse situation, you can easily give in to that, just thinking, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Whereas if you think, it's not a difficult situation, it's just, I just need a different strategy, it's just a different situation. And Krishna consciousness is so powerful, I can be Krishna conscious in any situation, but every situation will require a different strategy. Okay, so I'm living in Mayapur. So yeah, it's easier to be Krishna conscious in Mayapur. But I'm in Jagannath Puri, where everywhere you go, everyone is saying Jai Jagannath. So you say, hey, Mahatma, if I were there, I'd be Krishna conscious. You probably would be more Krishna conscious. Of course, it's no guarantee, but it doesn't mean you can't be as Krishna conscious where you are. It just requires a different strategy. So that's important to understand. Okay. Now Sushma says, tolerating everything, feeling I must behave like a devotee and not retaliate. Tolerance, trinadapi sunichena. If we're not tolerant, how will we chant the holy name? And how to become tolerant? Very easy answer, just do it. I don't know if there's any other answer. A lot of times Prabhupada, this is like Krishna tells Arjuna, titikshava, just tolerate. Tam titikshashva bharata. Well, how do I deal with all this? And Krishna says, well, just tolerate it. Sometimes there's nothing else we can do. It's a realization that I'm in a condition, there are certain things around me that are affecting me in a specific way, and I'm conditioned in a certain way, so they'll affect me in a certain way. And I have to accept it. That this is how it is. And the more sushma, the more accepting you are, the easier it is to tolerate. Because I was just listening to this lecture. I'm doing some work in corporate preaching, so I was listening to this lecture, see what Warren Buffett had to say. See if I could use something, and I got something good from him, and I'll tell you in a minute. It's quite nice. So I totally forgot why I brought him up. We were talking about accepting. Oh yeah, so he said, if you want to have a good marriage, it's easy. Have no expectations for your partner. You'll be very happy. So I think you can apply that in so many ways, so many situations. the less expectation you have of a situation, of a person, the more accepting you can be, because you have no expectations. So why do we become intolerant? Do you know why? Well, one of the main reasons we become intolerant is because, why does, in that verse about pride, is there the word tolerance? Because just think about it. The more proud we are, the more special we think we are, the more intolerant we become. Did you see how they dealt with me? I had to wait 3 seconds in line. I can't tolerate this. I'm special. Don't they know who I am? They should have put me in the front of the line. How could they do that? They fixed this and they didn't fix it right. I'm going to come and get a gun and shoot them. Whereas when we're more humble, we're more accepting. Okay, so it was done wrong. I'm not God. You did it wrong, but I'm not God. Okay, so I can be tolerant. That's the idea. So you just meditate on this, how pride and intolerance are connected. That's very interesting meditation, because the more and more you meditate on it, the more and more you'll see that intolerance is so often coming from just thinking, I'm special, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. And now you say, but I am special. I mean, my father told me my entire life, growing up, I was special. My husband told me I was special. My sister told me I was special. My brother told me I was special. Even once I was on television and they told me I was special. Okay, that's all right. But from Krishna's position, from the position of bhakti, we may have some special position materially, but spiritually, no. We're all just insignificant. We're not the body, the soul, we're all the same, 1/10,000th the size of a hair. So we're not that special. The world should not evolve around our control. I've told before, I don't know if you remember, that when I first went to India, it was 1975, and India at that time did not function well. It functions much better now. In those days, it was just every day was like, you made it through the day and things didn't fall apart. It was like amazing. It was like things, technologically speaking, the infrastructure of India was such that it was just amazing that anything worked at all. Right, Sushma? Growing up in India, it's like every day was just, wow, Nobody got killed on the train, and nobody got run over by a bus, and nobody suffocated on the bus, and there weren't 5,000 accidents, and just amazing, that food on the table, it was all going on. So you'd see an American, they'd be having a problem somewhere at the airport, train station, something, and the way they would try to resolve problems in India is they would tell you, no, we can't do this. This is the rule. In America, they'll just bend the rule. In India, they'll say, this is the rule. You can't. You were, the plane, it's leaving. You were 36 seconds late. The door is shut. You can't get on. No, but I came a half hour early. Well, the doors close at 31 minutes. Well, you didn't tell me that. In America, they close 10 minutes. Well, you should have known. Well, it's too late. And they're arguing, and the Americans are arguing, screaming, yelling. They can't deal with it. We'd see this all the time in India. How did you know where the Americans were? It was just find somebody frustrated yelling, "Here's the Americans." So they couldn't deal with it because, things shouldn't go that way. I mean, we deserve that things go a certain way because we're special. So you'll see that the more humble you become, the more accepting you'll become. The more accepting you'll become, the more tolerant you'll become. Just follow that line of thought. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm just giving you like the seeds of it, and you just meditate it on. You meditate on it more, and it'll make more sense. So, Leslie says, at the same time, but, Leslie, the but word. The but word. Got to take that word out of your vocabulary. It's a dangerous word. But at the same time, it is very transparent when people act with this false humility. We cannot pretend we are free from pride when we're neophyte devotees. Okay. Yes, good point. Sometimes it's what Hridayana Maharaj calls this hyper-humility. It's so over the top, humility, and a devotee doesn't really have it. I think sometimes what a devotee is trying to do is compensate for the pride by, oh Prabhu, Prabhu, let me touch the dust on your toenail and shrine it on my altar and bow to it daily because I've offended you, and I certainly want your grace, and you're such a great devotee. Sometimes the devotee may do that just to counteract the reality that he thinks that this other devotee is really stupid, and he's just trying to, balance it out within himself. Sometimes it can be that a devotee doesn't really understand humility, and the only thing he understands is how to do it externally, because he's not feeling it internally, although there may be some benefit in doing it externally, even artificially. And then sometimes, and this is really perverted, sometimes we may make a show of humility to get some honor as being the most humble. And if I show them myself really, really humble, then people will recognize me, and they'll put it on my tombstone. He was the most humble. Bhaktisiddhanta had these devotees that they didn't do much service, but every time they saw him, they would pay obeisances. He'd call them Dandavat Prabhus, because that was like their service was just to, respect him, pay obeisances, but they wouldn't do much. So I think there are different reasons that we may do that, and it's true, we should be careful that we should try to be more genuine, that's true. But then the question is, what do you do when you don't have humility? Then you have to manifest it in some way in your actions. So then we understand, well, okay, I think what you're getting at is we have to act humbly, even if we're not humble. But we should understand we're not humble. So when I'm acting humbly, and I say, and Leslie, you act humbly with someone, but internally say, no, I know I'm not humble, but I know this is the way I should act with them, so I'm going to act that way. So that's real, and that's what we have to do. We have to at least act with our body in a humble way because it's proper. It's part of sadhana bhakti. Means the means and the ends are the same. So the means is humility and the ends is humility. The means is chanting, the ends is chanting. The means is service, the ends is chanting. So everything in sadhana, the means and the ends are the same. But what's different is the consciousness with which it's done, the realization with which it's done. So in Vaidhi sadhana, you're acting humbly by serving the others. So let me serve prasadam. Actually, you just want to sit down and be served, but you realize because you want to sit down and be served, it's probably better you serve. So you go in and serve, and you look less that you're serving, you look very humble, and you're asking everybody, you want anything more? Is there anything I can get you? Thank you for coming, and you're all humbled out, and you're looking really good. You have a straw between your teeth. And then you go home and you go, wow, man, I served the best. I was the best server. I listened to all these Vaishnava etiquette tapes. I knew how to serve. I'm the man, or I'm the woman. So you could be thinking like that, but at least you did it, right? At least you served, you did the action. And by doing that action, eventually, it'll come to that point where internally you'll feel like, yeah, I'm actually honored to be able to serve these Vaishnavas because I'm so worthless and so low, and Krishna is so kind to allow me to serve them prasadam. So someday you'll come to that. So yes, be real about it, that you don't feel that way, acknowledge that, and then realize you have to work on it. Good point. So Leslie, you could say but, and we won't repudiate you for saying but. It was a good but. We intellectually know that anything good we seem to be doing is mercy, but we may still not be free from the pride. Yeah, I think that's the reality. I mean, that in a sense is the essence or sums up what we're talking about here, in that, remember I began saying, okay, you may feel something, but you don't have to act on it. So just like I may feel proud, but it doesn't mean that I have to manifest it externally. I can still manifest externally humble behavior, because it's the right behavior. Even though I'm proud, it's okay. Right? Okay, it's not okay to be proud, but sometimes it's just our condition, so we'll act that way. I mean, we'll think that way. As long as we don't act that way, if we think that way, then first we can at least work on the physical level of how we're acting, and then we work on the internal level. So what we understand is, in Krishna consciousness, we're given instructions, a set of instructions. This is proper behavior. But we're also given instructions that this is the proper mentality with which to do the proper behavior. So we don't always get the proper mentality. The proper behavior is easier. And so sometimes the proper mentality will come later. But proper mentality usually comes as a byproduct if the behavior is proper and we're trying to be in the proper mood. And that's just a reality. That's just how it is. Because we're conditioned. Okay, you're saying it's transparent. Some people act with this false humility. Anyway, don't be disturbed that they're doing that. It's just, I think when people act that way, there's probably somewhere in their heart an intention to be that way, and a realization that they know that's the proper way to be. So maybe we just need to appreciate it. I think that's the best way. Just appreciate that they're trying. You know, like what I initially said, I don't know if you were here for the class when I said it, but like I initially said, we are all struggling to be Krishna conscious, but the fact is that we're trying, and there's so few people trying. You know, I don't know if you know this, but sometimes, rarely, but it happens that a devotee is married to a non-devotee, and the non-devotee never becomes a devotee. I mean, you would think, okay, you know, that much exposure to Krishna consciousness, they would just get it, and plus they're married, which is quite an impetus to become the same religion as your spouse, isn't it? And in spite of that, they never become devotees. So they don't mind devotees, they like devotees, whatever, but they never actually get into Krishna consciousness. It never registers. So all of you're practicing Krishna consciousness, and that's because your bhakti sukriti, your past piety and bhakti, has hit a threshold where you can do bhakti. And for these other people, it hasn't hit that threshold yet. So you're all special, you're all fortunate. So let us kind of like keep that always in mind when we might see a devotee doing something which we know is kind of artificial or not real. But maybe we can see somewhere down within his heart there's that seed of desire to actually feel that way that he's kind of artificially acting. He actually would like to feel that. I think it's true. I think down in their heart they want to feel that. So Nimzu says, when the food I cook turns out nice, I give Mata Radha the credit for allowing me to help cook for Krishna. Yeah. Radharani cooks in the kitchen, and you're assisting her. Very nice. Very nice. I like that. Welcome Palak and Leela. Sorry for being so late. Yeah. Well, it's early in the morning for you, right? You're forgiven. And Nimsu says, I have a question about anger tolerance. How can I deal with a rascal? Excuse me. The rascal that blasphemes Krishna and devotees. Samaya has been asking me the same question. And ultimately, there are two things to do. Well, Shastra says there's a few things. One, you just try to convince them that what they're saying is wrong, either through logic or through being sweet and kind, or just simply asking them to respect you and at least not say that in front of you. And the other one is to leave, or you could do both. So you want to help somebody so they don't do that. But some people, they're just angry at the world, so, devotees just happen to be in their face, they'll get angry at them. So, the other thing is sometimes, the third thing, which you can do, but is just feel sorry for the person that they're so angry. Because anger, if somebody's very angry, it means they're frustrated. And they're using their anger to relieve their frustration. So sometimes when somebody's very angry, rather than taking it personally what they're saying, we understand, oh, this poor person, they're frustrated. And we could ask them, when someone's angry, we could say, tell me what's bothering you, what's upsetting you. Because it's not that necessarily they're angry at devotees, angry at Krishna, just angry at the world, they're angry at everybody. It's a frustration with life. So if you see it that way, then the source of the blasphemy is kind of more of a psychological disease than they actually are trying to pull Krishna down. Because a lot of people like that can become devotees also. It actually happens. So sometimes it's really good to see what's going on. I mean, I've met many people who didn't like devotees, said nasty things, and later became favorable, because they were that's the kind of people they were. They say nasty things to everybody. So sometimes it's like that. But generally, what you have to monitor for yourself is how hearing this blasphemy is affecting you. Because if it's having a very negative effect, then ultimately you have to get away from it. But all I'm saying is sometimes it may not have a negative effect when you realize that the source is not really specific blasphemy of Krishna. They're just frustrated, and Krishna is getting in the way of their life, or the devotees are getting in the way of what they believe. Devotees don't believe what they believe, and what devotees say would restrict them in some way from enjoying, and so they don't like devotees. I mean, ultimately, why people would blaspheme God? Because God gets in the way of their sense gratification, right? Isn't it? When you think about it? I mean, that's what it amounts to. So, if you understand it that way, then you're approaching it in a more compassionate way. But you have to monitor and see if it's actually affecting you. I know whose head it is you'd like to rip off. So, but it's not recommended in Shastra to rip people's heads off. Now, if you're Kshatriya, you have a valid, and you're fighting for Dharma, there's a valid reason. But just because someone's blaspheming Krishna, well, it's the tongue you're supposed to cut out, not the head. You leave the head and you cut the tongue. But I don't recommend cutting the tongue, even though in principle, we understand what Shastra is saying. Stop him, cut his tongue out. If you can cut his tongue out with your words, so his tongue stops blaspheming Krishna, yeah. But if you cut his tongue out, you'll probably regret it. Although, he'll still blaspheme Krishna, you just won't be able to hear what he's saying. So, yeah, ignoring, tolerating it is very hard. In those situations, time to leave, I think. And you already know the answer to that question. So, Leslie says, I'm working on the submissive inquiry thing. Yeah, that is going to be a challenge for you. But I have big hopes for you, Leslie. You can do it. Because here's the thing. We all have a challenge being submissive because we weren't trained to be submissive and just do what we're told. Yes, Prabhu, whatever you say. And then get married and tell your husband, yes, Pati, whatever you say I will do. Yes, Devi, you just tell me I'll do it. We're not trained that way, are we, Pallavi? Not trained like that. But it's our nature. That's the nature. So, and it's the culture within which we can make the most advancement in Krishna consciousness. So it's like it just, if you want to be Krishna conscious, it just fits naturally. Being submissive, at least that's. I mean, one thing we saw with Prabhupada, it was so clear that some devotees could only be submissive to Prabhupada. And they were very submissive to Prabhupada and very humble. Their demeanor was not humble in general, and so they were not humble with other devotees, but they were humble with Prabhupada. So it's better than nothing. It was the beginning. Of course, Prabhupada would ask them to be humble with other devotees. And they would try, because Prabhupada asked them. So at least be humble with somebody. Be humble with your guru. I mean, it's a start. But the real challenge is to be humble and submissive with other devotees. Of course. We're conditioned souls, we're learning, but it's the culture. It's the culture in which Krishna consciousness grows best. So, yes. And Sushma says, Krishna is helping you. Yeah? He's always helping. You have to see that. Even the difficulty will not look difficult if you see he's helping. So, submissive inquiry also. Submissive inquiry means that you're going to do what you're asking a question, you're going to do it. Not just asking to get an answer. So that's, submissive is not, submissive doesn't mean you're around somebody who doesn't have your interest in mind, who's exploiting you and you do whatever they say. Because submissive, ultimately it relates to Krishna and the Guru. So Krishna and the Guru have your welfare in mind. So it's not dangerous. Okay. Sundarup has lost audio. So, Leslie, you've got 37 more years before you hit perfection. So we're going to check you out in 37 years. And if you're not perfect, we're going to hang you. Of course, I probably won't be here in 37 years. That means I'd live to be 99. So, I don't know. You don't have much to worry about as far as being hanged. But maybe someone who heard this might come and find you. We'll put the Krishna conscious meter up to your head or your heart and see if you're Krishna conscious. So you have like 37 years more. Get working on it. Okay. Okay, Sundarupa, you're excused. Hare Krishna. Internet tolerance. Okay. Yes. Now, Leslie, I have something for you to tell you, to encourage you. The longer you stay in Krishna consciousness, the better it gets. But you have to stick it out through the tough times. Just look at it like we're climbing Mount Everest. And when we get up there, it's going to be really nice, but it's not going to be easy. Don't give up when the storm comes. It's just a reality that becoming Krishna conscious is it's so natural, but it's so now unnatural that we're trying to straighten the dog's tail. And so it's going to take time to straighten it. And it's going to keep curling up. But it's just part of the process. If you see acceptance, if you accept it, then it's like your mind, your senses may go wild, but if you accept, not that you accept that you give into it, but you just accept that those pushings and pullings are going to be there because you have a body, because you're a conditioned soul, it's much easier to deal with because you accept it. It's just, okay, that's the way it works. I can accept that. And as you become conditioned, try to understand, I'm sure you understand, but just for the sake of this discussion, let's focus on this idea that all those negatives, they begin to lose energy. So you're going to come to some point in your life where all these things now that are driving you nutty, where you say, I'm so this, I'm not submissive, and I'm not tolerant, and I'm so proud, and I'm this and that, all that stuff is going to become more and more minimized. But the cool thing about it is that as they become minimized, what's happening? They're becoming minimized because this mood we've been talking about of being the servant, I exist for service to others, I exist to please Krishna. That mood gets stronger and stronger, and that's why those anarthas are becoming deflated. So it's not just like an impersonal thing where you deflate your anarthas and you emerge in Brahman, but they're being deflated by this other desire. So someday, Leslie, and all of you, if you stick to Krishna consciousness, you're going to wake up one morning and go, oh my Govinda, I just want to serve the world. I just want to help. I don't even care about myself. And that's going to be the predominant thought and feeling in your life. Wouldn't that be good? You're going to be happy. And you're going, it's going to no longer be about whether people like Leslie or not, whether people think Leslie's good or not, whether people treat Leslie nice or not. It's not going to be about that anymore. It's just going to be about how can I help other people. Even the people that are going to spit at me in the face because I said Hare Krishna to them and they don't like Hare Krishna. It's not going to matter anymore. You're going to live in your world will be a world of simply giving. You exist to give. It'll be a world of accepting inconvenience, tolerating whatever is necessary to tolerate in order to help people. That's the world you'll live in. That's the natural world. That's our consciousness. That's who we are. All this other stuff which we have identified as ourself, which we've implanted on our consciousness as who we are, and we have such a hard time getting over it because we think that's who I am. It's not who you are at all. There's nothing to do with you, but that's the false ego we've identified with all our anarthas. No, I am pride, I am envy. Why do you think you are? Because I'm always proud, I'm always envious, so I must be that. No, you're not that. Just think you're that. Yeah, it will happen, but you have to, just don't jump off the boat. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how difficult it gets, don't jump off the boat. Every day, 16 rounds, no matter what, come hell or high water, 4 regulative principles. Just do it somehow or other. Don't ever get to this point where you just take your bead bag and throw it away and go, I give up, it doesn't work. It is working. Sometimes you don't notice it's working, but it's working. I'll tell you a nice story. There was a lady who was hearing Bhagavatam class every day. And she was telling, one day she told the Bhagavatam speaker, she said, you know, every day I hear your class, but I just forget everything you say. It just doesn't seem like it's helping me. He said, here's a basket. Can you go to the Jamuna and fill the basket up with water? So she went to the Jamuna. But basket is weaved out of grass, so the water seeping through. So she comes back and said, you know, I did this so many times that the water wouldn't stay. He said, did the basket get cleansed by the water? And she said, yeah. And then she understood, said that she's getting cleansed by hearing, even though she feels like it's not doing anything. So that's the process, even though you feel like it's not doing anything. You may not realize it, but it's working. So the whole point is, don't give up. Every day, every day, every day. Yes, life is so much easier. Sushma had so happy she's Krishna conscious because her life before was lacking Krishna consciousness. And when she came to Krishna consciousness, it was such a relief for her. She's so happy. Sushma, I am so happy that you're happy. And I'm sure Prabhupada is also happy. Yes. Anyone who sticks with Krishna conscious process, yes. Yes, it will happen for you and everybody. And so, with that faith, we just do it. Somehow or other, we just do it. Get better at it and continue it. Okay, so we went an hour and a half, and so we're going to stop now. Thank you all for coming, and we will see you Saturday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll still be in Jagannath Puri. Maybe we'll have some nectar for you that we gather here while we're here. Okay, everyone? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.